I'm fishing the Staffordshire Worcestershire Canal. First cast, the float goes, it's a tiny gudgeon. Always a good sign though, isn't it? First cast. I didn't think I was going to get this session in, just making myself a cup of tea. Because this morning, the weather forecast for overnight was for extremely heavy winds and strong rain. I was up at 5 o'clock and I only needed to open the blinds and peep through to see that the weather forecast was absolutely spot on. And during the day, it was going to be not so bad. So I thought, I'm working from home and we can only go out fishing once a day at the moment. So rather than battle on this morning, I'll go later today. No, I'm not against fishing in adverse weather circumstances, but when you've got a choice, you may as well go for the latter, as I did. However, my wife had a text about lunchtime. We have a COVID-19 vaccination slot if you can make it today, because obviously they get so many vaccines in and they want to use them up. And so she said to me, I'll do that. I said, and ask if I can get there as well. So she called them and says, is there enough for my husband? Because I did have a letter just the other day anyway. And they said yes. So we went along and I thought, it's 3:40 in the afternoon, 3:45 I think it was. Not sure I'll be able to get a fishing session in. Anyway, we got there, went straight through, had the jab, came out. By the time I got back home, even though there was schools traffic where we live, it isn't too bad in terms of navigating through those really congested areas. Although we do have a school right by where we live, but that's okay because we've got to drive so it doesn't cause any issues. So I was back home. The advantage of having all your gear together and your rod made up, even though I'm float fishing, my rod's still made up. So get back home, make the flask, load the car, and then get down the canal for an hour and a half. Fantastic. It's all about pushing yourself, fitting in what you can when you can. And by doing that, I've had a session this afternoon that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have had. And let's hope it's worth it. Well, I'll tell you what, it will always be worth it because I'm fishing, and that is the most important thing. Out and about in the great outdoors, in the countryside, in the fresh air. The fish are an icing on the cake sometimes, aren't they? Although I am fishing, not just sitting by the water. So catch a few fish. I'll be certainly a happy camper indeed, as I am right now. Plus I've caught albeit a tiny little gudgeon. Not as big as the perch from my last session. What a monster that was. Last cast as well. However, I needed the net for this one. Not bad though, is it? If I could say I'm on a roll at the moment, and that roll continues with nice perch. As I said at the beginning, I'm a happy camper. Well, I'm an happy camper plus right now because I do love perch. Great, aren't they? That fish has now been returned. I've cast out again watching the float. I do fish a lot. I fish as much as I can. Twice a day if possible. At the moment though, just the one session. However, I do have a full-time job, plus lots of other things going on in my life. And it is about organisation. It's about being organised as an individual. And it is, as I've already mentioned previously, about pushing yourself. Plus, the job that I've got, demanding but flexible. I've just set up an interview for an Italian journalist from the 442 magazine with Paul Harrison, who's the TNS goalkeeper, and H played in goal when the New Saints played Anderlecht a number of years ago now, and Lukaku played for the Belgian team at the time. So he's writing a children's book about Lukaku, and he wants to include something in there with Paul Harrison. So I've just set that up, sitting on the canal here while I'm fishing, while I'm watching the float. I've set it up on my phone. So I've spoken to Paul Harrison, spoken to the Italian journalist, connected them together. So now the interview can take place. So I wonder how many people that I'm talking to during the course of the working week. I was talking to someone from the BBC last week. In fact, I didn't realise that he's quite well known, Mike Bushell. He contacted me, and Manchester City lost to Manchester United last weekend. Otherwise they would have been on an ever increasingly closer connection to the new Saints world record of 27 consecutive wins. So he contacted me and said that he would like to come over for an interview. BBC breakfast show, that's when it was going to be. So I got that provisionally set up with him. That would have been today actually. So he was coming over to do an interview, a couple of interviews for BBC One Breakfast. But if Manchester City didn't win the weekend, then it was off. And as it was, of course, it was off. Now, I don't watch much television. I don't watch Strictly. But when I said to my wife later, I've been speaking to someone from BBC about coming over, Mike Bushell, she said, he was on Strictly not that long ago. So I do get to talk to some very interesting characters during the course of the week, and certainly over the course of a year, definitely. And how many of them realise that when I'm speaking to them, sometimes I might be in an office, other times I might be out here by the water's edge. And it doesn't matter, does it, as long as you get the job done. And when I took the job on initially, full time, the chairman of the New Saints said to me, he said, take your laptop down the river, as long as you, because he knows I'm a very, very keen fisherman. As long as you get the job done, I don't care. And that was an important part of taking the job for me, because fishing is a big part of my life. Obviously, I've got bills to pay, so I need a job. Fishing doesn't pay the bills. I do it purely and simply as a hobby, but it's a big, big part of my life in terms of balance, relaxation, taking time out, all that, very, very important. Those things are in your life. And when I've got a job, whatever that job will be, wherever it takes me, whatever work is involved, whatever commitment is there, as long as I can fish, I know that I've got balance in my life. And that, to me, is very, very important. As you can see now, I'm back in the car ready to go home. I've got the Isley Brothers to keep me company. Soul on the Rocks album. They only made 2 albums with Motown. They're both fantastic. They're like greatest hits. The 2 albums are. Soul on the Rocks is what I'm listening to now. Maybe 4 tracks, and then I'll be home on the drive. Get the car sorted. Fish and chips, vegetarian fish and chips. That'll be an interesting blog entry, I think, in the near future. Why I became a vegetarian. Then I'm going to try and catch some of the Rangers game that's on television this evening. I've got a website article to write, social media stuff, admin to do, work-wise. And then I'll be preparing to go out again tomorrow morning at first light, which now is about 6:15 on the bank. If you are fishing yourself tomorrow, tight lines. And although you can't comment here on YouTube, you can on my website, so why not head across? There's a guest book of comments in the menu. You can see it on the homepage there. You don't need to register or anything like that. Just write a comment, hit submit, and I look forward to hearing from you.